The interpretation of narratives is to some extent subjective, because everyone can experience art differently. At the same time, using literary analysis, we can still explain the most reasonable meanings that the artist meant to convey or that the audience is likely to understand. To understand themes of any work of art, however, spoilers are involved. Heavy spoilers. So consider this your spoiler warning. Hifirush, the highly successful rhythm-based beat-em-up by Tango Gameworks, is a game that is heavily focused on artistic style and interesting gameplay, but less so on complex narratives or interesting themes. Even so, there are a few themes that are conveyed throughout the main story, even if they are a little undeveloped. In this video, we're going to answer the question, what does Hifirush want us to learn about responsibilities? The first theme is about employee responsibility not to waste employer resources. Zanzo, the head of R&D, considers himself a creative, technical genius. However, he has no consideration for expenses and profitability, but he wants to pursue what seems to be creative development with passion, no matter the expense.
My bonus? No!
In fact, the way that Zanzo is defeated is through wasting his allocated budget on pet projects and impressing Chai. Similarly, Mimosa, the head of marketing, also wastes funds on personal pursuits rather than benefiting her employer or even the company's customer base.
Corsica, is this show for the audience or for Mimosa?
It is clear that Mimosa is quite self-absorbed. Much of the advertising is focused on her own self-promotion rather than promoting Vandelay's products and services. The celebration for Project Armstrong is also a live stage performance from her. Rather than a product demonstration, a celebration of successful Project Armstrong volunteers, or even a concert from a celebrity. In the Bible, Jesus tells us a parable about a worker wasting his master's resources. Who then is the faithful and wise servant, whom his master has set over his household, to give them their food at the proper time? Blessed is that servant whom his master will find so doing when he comes. Truly I say to you, he will set him over all his possessions. But if that wicked servant says to himself, my master is delayed, and begins to beat his fellow servants, and eats and drinks with drunkards, the master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he does not know, and will cut him in pieces, and put him with the hypocrites. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Matthew chapter 24, verses 45 to 51. This parable uses the everyday situation of an employee wasting employer resources to illustrate how just as we wouldn't waste our employer's resources, we should be faithful with what God has given us. Zanzo and Mimosa were both examples of how the game talks about the responsibilities of employees, but the game also talks about the responsibility of businesses, which is related to our second theme. The second theme developed in the game is about corporate responsibility to help the needy while doing business versus corporate greed. The game develops this idea by contrasting Vandelay under Roxanne versus Vandelay under Kale. Roxanne's business was successful and did make profits, but it also helped the world. In the game, Corsica mentions how Vandelay solved an environmental pollution crisis while doing business.
Roxanne Vandelay led the environmental cleanup and helped everyone in my city start again.
This theme of helping the poor and those in need is further developed with the motif of robotic prosthetics. Project Armstrong, as envisioned by Roxanne, was a project to develop cutting-edge robotic prosthetics for disabled people in need, like Peppermint, Chai, and later even Corsica. In contrast, Kale's project, Spectra, is a secret project about mind control, or at least strong subliminal influences on Project Armstrong volunteers to forever purchase Vandelay products and services. In the end, Roxanne's vision was to develop a profitable business that could improve lives, while Kale greedily wanted an immoral shortcut to improved profits. The Bible too discusses being kind to the poor in the midst of doing business. When you reap your harvest in your field and forget a sheaf in the field, you shall not go back to get it. It shall be for the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow, that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. When you beat your olive trees, you shall not go over them again. It shall be for the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow. When you gather the grapes of your vineyard, you shall not strip it afterward. It shall be for the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow. You shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt. Therefore, I command you to do this. Deuteronomy chapter 24, verses 19 to 22. In contrast, the Bible also describes the notion of evil schemes to make money. Woe to those who devise wickedness and work evil on their beds. When the morning dawns, they perform it, because it is in the power of their hand. They covet fields and seize them, and houses and take them away. They oppress a man and his house, a man and his inheritance. Micah chapter 2, verses 1 to 2. While Corsica and Macaron admired the Vandelay of the past, the company that helped people, They did not stop Kale from turning Vandelay into an oppressive corporate entity, which leads us to our third theme. The third theme in today's video is about individual responsibility to make the most of opportunities. Many of the good guys of Hi-Fi-Rush express their regrets in not making the most of the opportunities they've received. Peppermint regrets not realizing her potential as a Vandelay successor and continuing her mother's vision to build a successful corporation that improves lives. When faced with conflict, she leaves the company to her brother Kale, causing much of the problems of the game. Macaron, due to his non-confrontational nature, is unable to bring himself to take any serious action against Zanzo, despite knowing something was wrong.
We should have done something sooner. Known things went right, Roxanne.
Even though he was suspicious, most of his efforts were minor and passive-aggressive until meeting Chai. Likewise, Corsica, as head of security, notices some things amiss with her lack of access to Spectra information, but did not make the most of her position as head of security until meeting Chai. Chai, on the other hand, is different from the rest. As someone who had a disabled arm and no prospects for the future, Chai makes the most of every opportunity given to him. He aggressively volunteers for Project Armstrong and gains a robotic prosthetic. Despite the purpose of the prosthetic to be a garbage collector arm, he makes the most of his arm and music player powers by teaming up with Peppermint to challenge Vandelay. The Bible, too, encourages intentional living, particularly in terms of living for God's purposes. Look carefully, then, how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time, because the days are evil. Therefore do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. Ephesians chapter 5, verses 15 to 17. Despite not being a strong planner, Chai lives very intentionally, living life with strong mindfulness. The last theme for today's video is about the team responsibility for unity with diversity. The game suggests that much disunity comes from different styles and ideas. Peppermint and Chai constantly argue about the correct course of action, with Peppermint considering Chai's ways foolish and Chai considering Peppermint's plans not fun.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, let's see what her plan is. Who knows? Maybe it's better than yours.
Always glad to have these talks, Chai. Really invigorating.
Chai's intelligence and method of doing things is constantly belittled, but slowly the team becomes more accepting of Chai being himself. At the same time, the team must not only accept each other's quirks, but learn to work together as a team.
Peppermint, you need to do things your own way.
The motif of colors is used to signify each character's diversity and individuality, with Chai as yellow, Peppermint as light blue, Macaron as green, and Corsica as red. This theme of teamwork with diversity culminates in the boss fight with Kale, where team assists are called in repeatedly as part of the final showdown. Even though Peppermint, Macaron, and Corsica were not able to challenge Kale individually, with the help of Chai and each other, they are able to defeat Kale's executives and restore Roxanne. Similarly, the Bible also talks about unity with diversity in the church. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. On the contrary, the parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable, and those parts of the body that we think less honorable, we bestow the greater honor. And our unpresentable parts are treated with greater modesty, which our more presentable parts do not require. But God has so composed the body, giving greater honor to the part that lacked it, that there may be no division in the body, but that the members may have the same care for one another. If one member suffers, all suffer together. If one member is honored, all rejoice together. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 21 to 26. Even though Chai is a part that is weaker and unpresentable, he turns out to be indispensable.
I am a rock star.
Hi-Fi-Rush is a game that is more about memorable and stylish experiences rather than deep and impactful themes. Even so, the game does manage to offer a few interesting themes about responsibilities, such as those of employees, businesses, individuals, and teams. While not normally the type of storytelling that I prefer, it was an enjoyable experience, and I hope that with Craft on Buying Tango Gameworks, perhaps we can see even more polished stories about Chai and the gang in the future. That's all I have for you in this video. Bless you guys. Thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it. If this video blessed you in some way, please consider watching some of my other videos, subscribing, or sharing with me some of your thoughts.